Every dog has his day.
Scarface was hated right from the beginning, hated by the industry. I remember screenings where people were walking out and cursing our names up and down the aisles.
Hollywood didn't want to acknowledge it as this is representative of our filmmaking, of what our great filmmakers are doing. It's not a human story that everybody can relate to. It's fucking Dante's Inferno.
I took you out to fucking hell!
The audience responded as we had hoped they were to respond. At that point, I knew we had something special.
I'm Tony Montana, a political prisoner from Cuba. And I want my fucking human right now.
When I was watching it, I knew I was watching something special. I loved it. I don't know what about it made me love it so much. I was like, oh my God, I want to watch this movie again and again and again and again.
It really does feel like the best of Brian De Palma combined with the best of Oliver Stone and the best of Al Pacino, these three icons of American filmmaking.
The movie came out in 1983, really in the middle of the cocaine wars in Miami, so it was very much about contemporaneous history.
It was a time when this country was immersed in cocaine.
Scarface gave you the license to experience it as a grand, operatic, over-the-top movie.
This film pushed the borders of outrage on every single level.
It was shocking in its day, and I'm sure if you see it for the first time today, it's shocking. It influenced me 100%, no question about that. That reality, that fast-turning ugliness.
I can remember the feeling of shockwaves, you know, that this is something that you don't feel that often in movies.
I buried those cockroaches!
It has embodied that kind of cult following. It rivals that of a rock band that's been around for 40 years. Just that one movie.
So say good night to the bad guy. The last time you're gonna see a bad guy like this again, let me tell you.
Blown away, man. Blown away.
When Scarface came out, I had just started reviewing movies for the Wall Street Journal, and I was very excited, a Brian De Palma movie, and I was going to be the one to pass judgment on it. And as it turned out at the time, there was a big controversy over whether the movie should have been rated X for violence. And so my review reflected the controversy, it reflected my own feelings about the movie, which were mixed. I thought it was incredible. I thought it then went crazy. It just felt like it had blown apart at the end. You know, it was very funny because people read my review and they either denounced me for praising the movie or denounced me for not liking the movie.
In the New York Times, Vincent Canby was a pretty mixed to positive review. He saw a moral lesson in the movie. Pauline Kael, who was a great champion of De Palma, did her best to kind of tease out as much praise as she could from a movie that she felt was a kind of compromised version of De Palma's vision.
I do remember the critics making this big deal about the violence in the movie and, you know, going after De Palma with charges of misogyny and too much violence in movies. You know, I always admired De Palma as a kid for sticking to his vision and, you know, literally sticking to his guns.
I think that to a certain extent, Scarface was about the film industry, you know, and I think that in his depiction of the gangsters around Tony Montana.
We're gonna do this one deal, that's it. Okay, fuck you, how's that?
I think that's how he looks at studio executives.
Fuck you. Fuck you.
I had just made a very difficult, very unsuccessful picture, Blowout. I was kind of wanted to move into a different world. I was hoping to make a more commercial picture by making a gangster picture. I'd never done one before. And this was such a great script that I said, hey, I can do this.
I've always been a fan of Brian De Palma's. He truly was a storyteller, and I thought he could do the story better than anybody else.
Are you ready for some good news? Are you ready for some good news, man?
Sure, what you got, man?
When the movie opened, there were all these articles about how this is going to be the most violent movie ever made. And I begged my dad, I said, we have to go see this. And my father took me to see it opening weekend, and my jaw was on the ground. I was completely mesmerized.
I'm gonna carve him up real nice.
You know, it was such a beautifully made film and a beautifully acted film that I just sat there as a wannabe filmmaker, sort of watching the processes that they brought to this thing.
You know something about cocaine?
Are you kidding me or what?
I'm Cuban, so growing up in a Cuban community and everything, it had like the working class Cuban really upset. Even just giving up a hint that we wanted to see it could get you slapped by my dad. But I think that it's something that had to be shown, it had to be seen. It was real.
You got good stuff here.
I went and I saw Scarface in the hood. I was in the black neighborhood. It was West Philadelphia on the big screen, and it was one of those movies where you could yell back at the screen, and people went, "Oh, no!" And it just, everybody, was engaged in the movie.
I remember everything about Scarface. I was too young to get into theater. Up in Canada, it was restricted, and it was all anyone was talking about was this movie Scarface, that people were walking out of the theaters, that critics panned it, and I thought, I have got to see this movie.
Le cose fondamentali della mia vita, cioè aver imparato a nuotare, aver letto Primo Levi, giocare a pallone, amare, guardare, aver visto Scarface.
We had a friend of ours that somehow got a copy of a Scarface on VHS.
Coño, qué rica!
We would ditch school when their parents would go to work. We would ditch school and grab a bunch of 40 ounces and stuff and go to her house and watch Scarface. And wow, man, we watched it like every day for like 2-3 months.
It was everything that I thought it would be and more, because I came from another country. It was the dream, the American dream, and it represented all of that for me. And I had no idea that 6 years later I'd be living in Miami Beach, living my dream.
This is paradise, I'm telling you.
¿Cómo se llama?
Antonio Montana. And you? What you call yourself?
The image of Al Pacino in one of those bright, colorful, tropical tourist shirts, but then the sneer and the scar was a perfect symbol. That was the Jekyll and Hyde character of Miami and its reputation at that time.
There's nothing you can do to me that Castro has not already done.
Get him out of here!
Watching it, you believe Pacino is Cuban. As you go through it, you're not looking at the actor, you're looking at Tony Montana, the person, and he's Cubano. And he just captured so many things, Them working in the sandwich spot and making Cuban sandwiches at medianoches.
Si viene sandwich, man.
Drinking the little espresso shots. There's just so many elements in there, what it is to be a Cubano and the whole experience that went on in those years.
Man, you're pushing your luck, okay?
Don't worry.
That was dumb, man.
Hey, Ho, you worry too much, You're gonna have a heart attack.
I used to bug Al. All the performances, all the characters you've done, as great and as incredible as they are, like, what are they gonna think of fucking Tony Montana? Have you thought about it? And he'd be like, they're either gonna hate it or they're gonna love it.
Now you're talking to me, baby. That I like.
You cannot take your eyes off him when he's on screen. It's impossible. He's never in the moment. He's always a step ahead of everybody else.
She like me.
How do you know?
The eyes, Chico. They never lied.
I think my favorite scene in the movie might be when he's in a car with Stephen Bauer. And Stephen said, "Oh, what about the boss?" He said, "The boss, he's soft. That guy's soft." Fucking love that.
That guy's soft.
And I grew up like that.
Look in his face.
If a guy like that smells weakness, it's a wrap. They're gonna eat your ass up. And when I saw that moment between those two, I fell in love with that guy there.
Me, I want what's coming to me.
Oh, well, what's coming to you, Tom?
The world, Chico. And everything in it.
Every actor that was chosen made a really conscious effort to attack this story with absolute truth. And here we are, and the performances stand. All of them. I mean, all, like bang, 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 all of them.
When I was younger watching the movie, I just wanted the hot chick. I just, like Michelle Pfeiffer. It was just like, yeah, that's what you want.
Michelle Pfeiffer, she's almost like a kind of Barbie doll that's still in its case when she comes out there. And she was initially just used as a beautiful object.
Oh, she was a thing of beauty, marvelous. She was high on her own supply, all right.
There's a shot that slow zoom on Michelle Pfeiffer where she's sitting at her makeup table there in front of the mirror, and she's doing cocaine. And by the time the shot settles, she's had a cocktail and taken a hit off a cigarette. And you live like that. And a lot of people did in Miami at the time. It takes its toll.
Mary Elizabeth Mastrantonio was incredible as Gina.
You got some nerve, Tony! You think you can come in here now and tell me what to do?
She represented the innocence. That's all she wants, is to have Tony's love and affection and be part of the ride.
I'm all yours now.
I think you and me, we can work this thing out.
Also, I like the actor that said, "Whatever you do, Tony, don't fuck me, Tony."
Don't you ever try to fuck me.
I did a movie a while ago where I played a Colombian drug dealer, and I took that guy's accent. Don't ever fuck me, Tony.
Even the very small parts. I mean, people with 1 and 2 lines in that movie are wonderful.
Hello, Tony. Every day above ground is a good day.
They're all archetypes in some way, every character. You know, in some movies, all you want to look at is the star, and in Brian's movies, everybody to a certain extent becomes a star.
When you're dealing with actors of this level, you basically set them on the road and just get the hell out of the way.
Where'd you learn to speak the English, Tony?
I watch the guys like Humphrey Bogart, James Cagney. They teach me to talk. I like those guys.
The first 3.5 minutes of the movie are a documentary. That is what happened in Miami from April to October of 1980, is what plays out between the credits. And I remember being extremely young, but sitting at the kitchen table watching the local news at night, seeing these events unfold.
Fidel Castro mocked the government of this country by sending criminals. But among those bad people, there were great people too, which I knew a few of them. You know, like a few of my songs that I've recorded and have been very big hits were written by these two sisters that came in the Marielitos.
You know, myself being a Cuban refugee, knowing what the Cuban has to go through to get away from the clutches of communism, as my father did and my mother did. As a kid, I still remember going through like all the immigration offices and meetings and stuff like that, so that scene is in there too.
I always know one day I'm coming here, United States.
Just similar stuff, like I remember the day that we went to the office and they gave my dad all of our green cards and stuff, and boom, you know, and watching my mom start crying because, you know, we got to America.
It was funny that me and Stephen Bauer, Manolo, we're both Cuban.
Let's do it, man. Come on.
I was approached by some Cubans saying, you gotta tell the producer, Universal Studio, and who's the producer, Marty Bremer, you gotta tell them that this movie, they gotta go easy on the Cuban, that's not right, you know. Yeah, I said, oh, sure, I will, you know. But me and Steven, we know that it was a movie and did not represent all the Cubans.
Martin Bregman said when they began to get death threats, they realized it was time to shut this thing down and go to LA to film the rest of it.
We weren't anti-Cuban, we weren't anti-anything, we were looking to tell a story. And as time went on, the threats seemed to fade off into the distance, and I'm glad they did.
I know my people, we're not all a bunch of killers and dope dealers, so just watch the movie, man, for what it is. It's a movie about some shit that really happened.
Scarface is full of tension, and it's a movie that shows you how quickly violence can happen in that atmosphere.
I think in Scarface, the most visually designed was the whole motel sequence.
Okay. You want me to come in? We start over again, Mike?
There's a lot of little humor touches that add to the tension in the room.
You're gonna get to know me when you start doing business with me and stop fucking around, Hector.
These are played for almost comic touches in the beginning, so that when the chainsaw is pulled out, your initial reaction is to laugh because it's like, a chainsaw in the middle of this tiny motel room? Like, how is that even gonna work?
Sube volumen. What De Palma did was actually quite controlled. And in that chainsaw scene, the way he leaves the motel and goes down to the car, and you're watching Manny talking to this girl, and you're just like, no, 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 your friend's getting up there. Like, just like slowly, he really, really, really teases you.
The scene with the chainsaw, for me, when I saw that in the theater, was arguably one of the most frightening things I'd ever seen in a movie, because it was so real.
Certainly it was a violent movie, although again it's so ironic. You look at that movie now and we've done things on Dexter that were more graphic than the chainsaw scene in Scarface, which was, you know, at the time people were running out of the theater, kind of was what we were being told.
Howdy leg, huh?
La scena della motosega, sicuramente molto pulp, splatter, anzi si direbbe. Ma io personalmente ho vissuto vicende, ho vissuto nel senso che ne ho letto nelle inchieste, ne ho scritto di vicende molto simili. Le bande di bielorussi nel sud Italia utilizzano il saldatore, ti inseriscono il saldatore nel sedere, lo accendono e ti dicono di parlare. Se tu più ritardi, più il saldatore diventa rovente e ti esplodono le budella. E questa è una cosa che è successa qualche anno fa nel sud Italia.
Chichi, get the yayo. That word yayo messed me up forever, because everywhere I walk in, any nightclub, any bar, I had to hear like 20 times a night, Chichi, get the yayo. Está bien, Tony.
The end of the chainsaw scene, this incredible act of violence, this vicious act of violence right there outside the Beacon Hotel, which is, all those buildings are still there. They're all restored, beautiful Art Deco structures right there on Ocean Drive. It's this sleepy retirement village. It's God's waiting room. Episodes like that happened on an almost daily basis in Miami Beach at the time.
Another great night here at the Babylon, right? Okay.
Wherever I go, virtually, people will mention Scarface.
Is that Coke in your bra? You just glad to see me?
Of all the things I've done, that's one of the things where people just, you know, they nod their head, you know, Babylon Club, or, you know.
So please give a warm Babylon welcome to the one and only Octavio.
I remember when I was a kid, my favorite scene was the scene in the Babylon Club where Octavio gets shot. And I was obsessed with Octavio, and I'd think, this poor guy, he just went to work that day, he just wanted to entertain, and now he's just getting shot up for absolutely no reason.
A federal judge was quoted as saying at the time, a very prominent one, that Miami was on the ragged edge of anarchy. And that was because we were being stretched to our limits with respect to crime, with respect to corruption, and murder.
After Loggia is killed, there's a kind of stopping point. The film fades to black, and then we see the rise of Tony.
Part one was an impressionistic film. Part two was an expressionistic film. They were totally different.
Push it to the limit. I mean, everybody likes an underdog story. As sinister as he is, that's part of what makes Tony Montana as likable as he is. I mean, America's built an entire country and culture on the concept of you can come here with nothing and the world is yours.
When people that come from nothing all of a sudden have a lot, you overdo things. You overdress. You go and buy everything because you never had anything. So that's the way I saw it. I mean, yeah, it was like ridiculous, but they would do that.
It's a kind of very interesting, very quickly done portrait of a marriage. The idealism of the romance fades. The Michelle Pfeiffer figure, she's thoroughly disgusted with Tony.
Can't you stop saying fuck all the time?
Where did you go, Paul?
There are kind of very funny lines in there.
I was only kidding!
And it's just this kind of portrait of decadence, and yet also a man who's become very paranoid.
Who put this thing together? Me! That's who! Who do I trust? Me!
I voice in the movie is as much a satiric comment on capitalism and success and what it means to succeed and what happens to you when you succeed. He happens to be doing it as a killer drug dealer, but is he really that different from the banker in the movie who's laundering his money? Is he really that different from that shadowy government guy who's in that last meeting that they all have? It's really talking about American society a lot.
This is what it's all about. This is what I work for.
One of my favorite scenes, though, was the dinner scene when he's saying your womb is polluted.
Her womb is so polluted. I can't even have a fucking little baby with her.
And she says, I got Nick the pig.
As a friend. What kind of life is that?
Oh my God, you get like, you're so embarrassed, you're freaking out, but it's the demise. And there it is, right there at the restaurant.
And even now when I watch the movie, that's the hardest part of the movie to watch. Because, you know, that's the downfall of a guy you like. He's violent, but he's like the everyman in a weird way.
That whole speech that Pacino gives to the restaurant full of people saying you need the bad guy so you can hide behind it because you're not that different from me. And to me, in some ways, that's the core of the movie.
You need people like me so you can point your fucking fingers and say, that's the bad guy.
He pulls the covers off of polite society, and he says that polite society cannot exist with all of its extravagances and its luxury unless there is an influx of money coming in from the back door and the seedy side of town.
Me, I always tell the truth, even when I lie.
You know, he was a bad guy, let's face it, he was a bad guy, but one of the things that people like, especially the young kids nowadays, you know, the young gangsters, is that he had morals. He's some morals. Like that time he didn't want to kill a wife and kids in the car with a bomb. Things like that.
Hey, no fucking way. That's it.
There's no code, per se, among the cocaine cowboys. They made it up as they went along.
This fucking guy.
Meaning it wasn't a code that was, you know, shared or traded among the cocaine criminals. But one of the things that turned out to be true was that whenever possible, you wanted to avoid killing children.
You die, motherfucker!
He drew the line, and that's honorable. You know what I mean? It's a great character to see him do that and draw the line. And of course, you can't do that in that game. You know, you got to go all the way. You go all the way or not at all. And he didn't go all the way.
I told you a long time ago, you fucking little monkey, not to fuck me.
Hey, who the fuck do you think you're talking to, huh? You wanna fuck?
That's the beginning of the face down in a mountain of cocaine downfall. His face comes up and it's almost like a clown's mask of cocaine. It's laughable. And the first time I saw it, I thought, am I supposed to laugh? Should I laugh at this?
There's nothing about this that's unreal. I mean, I've seen piles of cocaine like that on tables. I've seen people with coke on their noses. I've seen them do incredibly silly things in the process of being stoned for 36 or 72 hours. So why people say, oh, you know, this mountain of coke, please.
Vámonos!
Al is one of those great actors who's never finished with his work. And so I imagine on Scarface there was a constant experimentation. I bet he tried things every which way.
Say hello to my little friend here. Say hello to my little friend here. Oh! Say hello to my little friend here.
Common markers.
Say hello to my little friend.
Tony Montana at the top of the stairs with his guns. I mean, that is one of the most badass scenes for one of the most badass characters in cinema history.
I Tony Montana! You fuck with me, you fucking with the back.
Just being shot up, come on, and just taking the bullets and daring them to shoot him again.
I think you fucking bullet.
That was what we all waited for. It was this incredible denouement, this amazing climax.
Ultimately, the message of all these stories is the same, which is that if you were in the drug trade in Miami at that time, or you're a criminal, you wind up either dead or in jail.
When it came out, people hated it, some people loved it, but the only way you can judge, what the real significance of movies are is anybody looking at them 10, 20 years hence.
This country, you gotta make the money first. Then when you get the money, you get the power. Then when you get the power, then you get the woman.
When the movie came out, I went to 42nd Street to watch the movie with the regular crowd to see what the reaction was. Remember that lady, Martha, in the bed? She's the one that said, "No te muevas, cabroncito."
No te muevas, cabroncito.
Don't you move, you little shithead. Some people go, "That ugly bitch, shoot that bitch."
People laughed out loud at this film.
Okay.
It was like the collision of emotions. And you would laugh one minute, and the next minute you're going, oh my God, and then the next minute you're laughing again because it was just so outrageous.
Well, I didn't think we would be quoted as much as we are quoted.
Wordsmith to wordsmith, Oliver Stone. His one-liners are just fabulous.
This sound like a great big pussy, just waiting to get fucked.
There are just so many lines that became kind of instantly repeated and memorable.
Don't get high on your own supply.
I buried those cockroaches! Do you know what a hasha is, Frank? That's a pig that don't fly straight. Another Quaalude, you're gonna love me again. Say hello to my little friend!
I think my favorite line is when Tony meets Sosa.
You got everything a man could want.
I like you, Tony. There is no lying in you. And he says basically back, I have two things in this world. I have my balls and my word, and I don't break them for nobody.
Do you want to go on with me? Just say it. You don't? Then you make a move.
And it's kind of Tony's mantra. It's like the shit happens and you got to move forward, and I'm a loyal guy, and if you don't want to be part of this team, then fuck you. And, it's kind of like no bullshit. And I love that.
I just say paranoid.
In 7th grade, I saw Scarface 56 times. I recorded the movie, and I would go home every single day and watched it. And my goal was to have the entire film memorized, and I did it. And kids at school would test me. They were like, do the scene where Tony kills Frank, and I could do the entire scene.
No, don't kill me, please.
Don't worry, Frank, I'm not gonna chew you. Oh, Tony, thank you. Manolo, shoot this piece of shit, you know what I mean? And then Manolo walks up just like nothing. All right. And then there's when he first shoots Mel in the gut, and he's like, you can't shoot a cop. He's like, whoever says you was a cop,
Son of a bitch.
So long, Mel. Have a good trip.
Fuck you!
Flavor Flav says that in one of the Public Enemy songs.
You want a job, Ernie?
Hey, man, you got a job, huh?
The movie grew over time and the audience expanded over time, and I can't think of many other films that had this kind of trajectory.
De Palma was kind of just ahead of the curve, tapping into the criminal element down in Florida at the time. Michael Mann was also very interested in that. Just a year or so later, he's developed Miami Vice.
Eddie? No! Every time I've gotten within 20 blocks of this Colombian, I've had the pavement pulled right out from under me.
I know that, but you know why, Vic? Because you got your head up your culo. That's why.
Over the years, Scarface began acquiring this kind of cultural power that I became very much drawn to. I began to see its influence in music and pop culture and on television.
You couldn't watch an episode of MTV Cribs at the house of some hip-hop star that didn't have a Scarface poster, that didn't have a Scarface DVD on their shelves. It was watching things like that you realize that, okay, this has taken on a life of its own.
The rap artists, they got Scarface. They owned Scarface. It was part of their thing. So when they started expressing their lives in rap, Scarface was part of it.
Around the late 80s, I started hearing a lot of people bringing in Tony Montana lines into their rhymes. And then you've seen a lot of cats, I mean, a few cats that even portrayed themselves as Tony Montana in pictures and videos. To this day, some guys are still busting out a little Tony Montana here and there in their rhymes.
If you listen to the lyrics of rap, it's all about coming up from nothing, you know, balling, making yourself known.
I come from the gutter, and I'm making all the right connections. I could go right to the top.
The only thing Tony Montana needed was a rap career. You know what I mean? And it would have been perfect.
Time is gone. We gotta set our own mark and enforce it.
The movie itself became a part of the American culture, and then American culture reflected back parts of the movie.
And so it began kind of popping up in references on TV shows. The very first episode of The Sopranos has a reference to Scarface. Cartoons like The Simpsons and South Park have parodies of Scarface.
You need people like me so you can punch your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. So say goodnight to the bad guy.
A South Florida teenager used his father's credit card to run away from home and back to Cuba. For more on this story, watch Scarface in reverse.
You could turn on something like Law & Order and see Chris Noth talk about a doctor who performs operations.
He does plastic surgery. He stitches cops when they don't want to look like Scarface.
It's just those constant little references that made Scarface something that became part of the common language.
I got ears, Jerome. I hear things.
The novelization of Scarface was written by Paul Manette, who was a respected writer of gay fiction, and it was not something that he would normally do, yet it was a paperback original that sold very well.
For me, being invited to do a novelization is such an honor. They asked me to not do Tony Montana once he was here in America, but to go back 2 years before he came to America and decide how was it that he wound up in that boat drop. So one of the first questions I asked was, can I determine how he got his scar?
Where'd you get the beauty scar, tough guy? Eating pussy?
And then when they told me yes, I just went nuts.
You should see the other kid. You can't recognize him.
For me as an author, Scarface worked its way into my other work. For example, I do the Vampire Huntress Legends series, and it's a 12-book series that's about vampires, but the main character, Carlos Rivera, is a young, updated version of Tony Montana, and he became a vampire because he wanted to come up.
Arrivo Scarface.
Io ho scritto il mio libro Gomorra in una stanza dove c'era il poster di Scarface. Non solo quello, ma era una casa studenti di quartieri spagnoli.
You look at the poster, that poster is probably in more college dorm rooms than any other poster from that period.
How much?
43,000 fully equipped.
That all?
The Scarface merchandise was also a kind of product of the fans originally. People made their own Scarface t-shirts before they began to be manufactured, and then a whole kind of industry built up around it where you could buy Scarface toy figures.
Push it to the limit.
I own a pair of Scarface shoes that have the image of Al Pacino on them.
T-shirts with Pacino's face, Scarface, lighters, Scarface. It's just crazy.
Who wouldn't want to walk around in Scarface slippers?
Eventually there were even video games. Scarface, The World Is Yours sold over 2 million copies the first year it was released.
The video game, they were putting out what would have happened to him if he didn't die. And it gave fans and enthusiasts of Scarface a way to channel that energy. And I was one of the malls, the chicas, and when I got asked to do it, I mean, it was just like incredible.
Could you find that in a fortune cookie?
Yeah, they called us up one day to come down and do some voiceover stuff. So I was like, yeah, cool, man, for Scarface, yeah, whatever. So I went. And basically, you know, all they wanted me to do was just sit there and curse a bunch of stuff, you know, in Cuban slang. So I was like, shit, no problem, man. Vete pa la pinga, come mierda, tú no sabes mierda. And that's basically go to hell, shithead, you don't know shit.
If you look at the internet, there are many versions of Scarface edited in different ways. There are 3-minute YouTube videos that tell the entire story of Scarface solely through the use of the word fuck.
Fucking.
Fuck.
Fucking fuck you.
Fuck me.
Fuck fucking. Fucking fuck. We fucked up. You fucked up. I don't give a fuck. Fucking fuck for
Can't
fucking
you stop saying fuck all the time?
Fuck you!
To me, it's like everything goes back to Scarface.
Come here, give me a kiss.
When you're looking at other films too, like Inglourious Basterds, you can see just a slight nod to the De Palma film.
I never spoke specifically with Quentin about Scarface tying into the ending of Inglourious Basterds, but now that you think about that ending with Tony Montana just shooting and them going down in flames, I know that De Palma is Quentin's idol, so there's no way that that doesn't seep into there somewhere.
You still got the money? Yeah. And I got the yayo.
There's a level on which Scarface spawned the documentary that was made, Cocaine Cowboys.
And it's because of the incredible success and popularity of Scarface that we were able to make Cocaine Cowboys, a documentary that told the real story of Scarface in Miami and the cocaine wars in the 1980s.
You stay loyal in this business, you're gonna move up. You're gonna move up fast.
Fa parte della tua vita perché è una quotidianità, un modo di parlare, un modo di essere che senti intorno a te, che vedi, che ascolti, e in alcuni casi che ambisci ad essere.
The world, Chico. And everything in it.
This is a happy ending that it is now. Where it's gotten to is to that place of approval. And it just lives on its own forever. Forever. And that's the great thing, is that they can't take it away from us.
Because the movie's great, and it lives through time.
That's why you've got to make your own moves.
You have to live through the rejection, people not understanding, people not seeing, and survive it, and hope you can go on and make another movie.
In all the films that I've made, there have been 30-some-odd films. This was probably the most interesting film I've made.
Oh, Tony.
You can empathize with another character who in real life you would never go near, but recognize elements of your own humanity or psychology in this depiction. So it's this kind of collective unconscious thing that the whole audience shares.
All I have in this world is my balls and my word, and I don't break them for no one.
I think there is a Scarface nation. There is a whole culture that has grown up around Scarface, and it brought that ethos and hip-hop culture and pop culture all together.
The one thing that you have to say about Scarface is that it is exciting. And that in and of itself is a huge accomplishment.
At 17, it was my favorite movie, and to this day, it's still my favorite movie, with all of the movies I've seen in between, because of what it represented to me.
It's to the land of opportunity.
And to this day, whenever I get a little depressed in this business and things like that, I don't always go back and watch the little artsy-fartsy movie. I'll go watch Scarface, because Scarface would fuel me to want to make movies like that and tell those type of stories about those type of guys.
You need people like me.
Say goodbye to the bad guy.
You'll never see a bad guy like this ever again.
I told him Montana! You fuck with me, you fucking with the bad.